Hey guys, what's up? So in this video we're going to be looking at class-based views and how we can use them to handle our requests and responses as an alternative to our function-based views. Now we've been using function-based views that are simply functions that take in an HTTP request and then return an HTTP response. Now we're going to go ahead and modify some of the existing functions we have so that we turn them into class-based views. We shall also be exploring some of the differences between our normal function-based views as well as our class-based views. So let's get started by creating a simple class-based view. So the first class-based view I'm going to create is going to be our index or our home page, just like we have here. So I'm going to start by importing our view class from our Django.views. That's going to allow us to create all of our class-based views. So I'm going to start by saying from Django we are going to import our views, and then from our views we shall go ahead and import our view class. Now each of the view functions that we create here, we can go ahead and create each class that inherits from our view class. And when we inherit from our view class, what we're creating is a class that's going to return an object. Now the beauty with this is we can even go ahead and extend the functionality of such views and be able to use those views to basically return HTTP responses, as we're going to see. So I'm going to start by creating our class. I'm going to create a class, and this class is going to be our home page. Now this home page is actually going to be the function that we are going to modify this function that return it into a class-based view. So I'm just going to call this a home page view, and this is going to inherit from our view class. Now after doing this, the next thing is going to be to basically state the HTTP method that we're going to use in this case. Now for this example, we only have a get method since all view functions take in the get method as their default method. Now what I'm going to do is to define our get method. So since this is a class-based view, each HTTP method we explain as a method of this class is going to take in self as well as our request object. Now since we have this, then we can go ahead and also explain how we're going to return our response. So to return our response, I'll simply come and return, and in this case we can go ahead and return our render function. Now that we have our render function, we can do it just like we did for our function-based views, and I'm just simply going to come and copy our template, actually put in our request here, and then specify our template, then I'll also give in our context. So what we have here is a function that takes in a get method, and when we take in this get method, we basically return an HTTP response, just like the way we do for normal function-based views. So I'm simply going to go and come right here, and then what I'll do is to basically put in our context right here within our view, our method. And once we have this, then I can go ahead and save, and then we need to attach this to our URL patterns. So to attach this to our URL patterns, we need to remember that these are classes and therefore they return objects. Now the way we do that is by calling the @asView method that helps us to basically return HTTP responses, as we're going to see. So I'll begin by commenting out this view function that we have here, and after commenting it, I'm going to go ahead and save. Now when I save, I'm going to head over to our urls.py within the same app, which is our post app, and then I'm going to basically change our view function. So I'll come right here on our index, and then specify that this is actually going to be our home page view. But since it's going to be an object, we need to call the .asView function or the .asView class method that is on each of the view classes that we have. So in this case, what I'm going to do is to say .asView, and right after doing this is actually going to return our home page view as a function that will take in any number of arguments, just like we're going to see. So I'm going to go ahead and save, and when I save, hoping that our server is running, our server is restarted. So when you go back to our Chrome right here, what we're going to do is to refresh, and now we see that our home page is returned successfully. Now the beauty with class-based views is you can be able to specify our variables just like we give class attributes, and those class attributes may be the ones to use in each of our methods, as we're going to see. So in this case, when you go back to our views.py, what you can actually change is our object, or we can actually change the way we are returning our template. So instead of saying that we're returning index.html for this request, what we can do is to come and specify our template name, and this template name is actually going to be our index.html. So I can just come right here and say this is going to be our index. Sorry for this. I'm simply going to come and change this to index.html. And after doing this, then we can use object-oriented programming concepts to basically return our template name. So instead of rendering our index.html, I can go ahead and change this to self dot, and then I can specify that we need our template name. And when I go ahead and save, our server is restarting. So when I go ahead and save and return back to our Chrome right here, when I refresh, we now see that our view function is actually working correctly. Now, another beautiful thing about these class-based views is that we can be able to extend them and be able to actually do different things with them. For example, I can come and create another class which is going to inherit from our homepage view. So I'm simply going to come and call this the about page view, and this is actually going to inherit from our homepage view. And once we have this, we can go ahead and just simply change the template that's going to be rendered. Now I can go ahead and comment this out. So I'm going to comment about template out, or about view function out. And once I have done that, then I'll go ahead and specify that instead of returning our view function, what we're going to actually return is our about.html. I'm simply going to come right here, and all I'll have to do is to change our template name. And in this case, I'm just simply going to come and say that our template name in this case is going to be about.html. So when I go ahead and save, when I start our server, right now we see we have no attribute about, so that means you have to go back to our urls.py and then change our view. So when I come to views.about, I'm simply going to call our about page view, and then since this is an object, we shall call that .asView function. And once we call that, we shall go back to our routes here. So when I refresh, there is no error. So let's try to actually go to our about view. So when I go to localhost 8000/about, in this case we're going to go to a blank HTML template. So this is actually showing us that we can have another view function that's basically inheriting from another view function. Now the beauty here is you can have one class-based view that, like we see our homepage here, and then if we want some of the functionality that is to about the homepage view, we can create another class-based view and then be able to basically override the functionality of our homepage view. This is wonderful. So let's go ahead and look at how we can implement different methods in a class-based view. So let me go ahead and look for one that has post and get methods. So when you look at our function for creating a post, or our view function in this case, we actually have two HTTP methods. So for the first case, we have our get method, which is the default method, and for the second case, we have our post method, which goes ahead and saves our post. So what we can do in this case is to basically create this as a class-based component, and then we'll be able to look at how we can carry out different HTTP methods. Now the beauty with class-based views is instead of allowing us to do branching of our HTTP methods, just like you see by default we have a get method, but when we want to call a post method, what we need to do is to actually do conditional branching, where we have to specify if request.method equals post. Now that is actually different because when we are using our class-based views, we actually just write them as methods of our view class. So let's go ahead and import and basically change this. So I'm just simply going to comment this out, or let me not actually comment it, we're going to write it the way it is. So I'll just come right here, and what I'll have to do is to create a class. And I'm going to create this and call this create post view. And once I do this, I'm going to simply come and I'll inherit from view. And once I've inherited from view, sorry for this, and this is actually going to be our view, and once we have our view, then I'm going to specify what's going to actually happen. So what I'm going to do is to basically specify our template as our class variable. So I'll simply come and say that our template name is going to be, in this case, it's going to be our post. It's actually going to be our create post.html. And right after doing that, we shall also look for another attributes, which is going to be our form. So I'll just come right here, and all I have to do is to write our form class. So we are basically handling this file for both our post request as well as our get request. So our form class is actually going to be the post creation form. And once we have this, then we're going to go ahead and implement our methods. So these methods are HTTP methods, but they are basically functions that you write or methods that you create for every function. So if you want to create a get method, all you do is to call the get method, and then we write our get method, then we provide a request object. Sorry for this. So I'm just simply going to come right here and specify that we need a request object. And once we have this, I'm simply going to pass this for now. And when we have a post request, I'm simply going to come right in here and I'll provide self and then our request and then any number of arguments, but I'm just simply going to leave it like this for now. Now the first thing we're going to do is to take care of our get request. So what we have in our get request is simply a function, or actually an instantiation of our form class, and then basically an HTTP response that's going to basically render our template. So let's go ahead and do this. So to begin, I'm simply going to come right in here, and all I have to do is to call our form. And since we have our form as our form class, what you can do is to call it with self.form class. And then in case we want to put any initial values in here, we can actually come right here, and all we have to do is to specify our initial values. And we can basically make this a dictionary containing keys and then values. So this is actually going to basically have it's actually just going to have an empty value for now. But after doing that, so what you can come and do is to basically state that our initial values for this form, sorry for this, so our initial is actually going to be equal to our self dot initial values. And once we have that, then all we have to do is to create our context, just like we see it in our get request right here. So I can just come right here and then call our context. So I'm just simply going to create our context. So this context is actually going to be a dictionary, and the first thing it will have is going to be our form. Now when you have our form, it's actually going to be the form that you created as a result of creating an instance of our form class. And once you have that, then you can go ahead and return this render function. So I'm simply going to come and copy this. So I'll simply come right here and paste it, and this will actually return our template. So I'm going to go ahead and log in to confirm if our things are actually working. So I'll click on our login page right here, and I'll provide credentials for our user who is existing. So I'll provide Paul Heyman. I'll also provide the password and then log in. So this is actually going to take us to our home page. When we go to create a post, we can now see that our view function is actually returned. Honestly, this is beautiful. So when you go back right this side, what you can do is to actually also change the way our form works, or change the functionality of our template in case you are sending a post request. So in this case, you have a simple branch here that's actually saying that if the method is post, then you have to create an instance of our form class, but it will have the request data as well as the files that come with the request, and then you go ahead and use that to save. So what I'm going to do is to just simply come within our post method right here, and the first thing I'm going to do is to create an instance of our class. So we shall create it with self.form class, and this is actually going to have both our request data as well as our request files. So to do that, I'll just simply come right here and then say request dot. In this case, we need to call our post, since we need the data that comes as a result of our post request. And then we're also going to call our files, so we need to access the files that come with the request. So I'll just simply come right in here, and all I have to do is to say request.files. After doing this, then we're simply going to write the logic that's going to be in our post request. So I'm just simply going to come and copy this code right here, which is actually going to check if our form is valid, then save our data. So I'll simply come right in here, and all I have to do is to check if our form is valid. So just simply going to put it in here and then go ahead and save. So this is actually going to go ahead and return our post home. So this is actually going to take us back to our home page. So when I save this, I'm going to go and check our server. So our server is running. We are good. So what I'll actually do is to go ahead and basically create our post. So when you go back to our URLs right here, all I have to change is our view function to a class-based view. So I'll just come right here and call our create post view .as view. Then what I have to do is to also come and call the .as view. And when I save, hoping that our server is running, we don't have errors. So I'll simply go back to our Chrome right here. So let's actually try to create a post. So I'm going to first refresh. We actually have an error here. We have post creation form object is not callable. So let's try to fix this. So when I go back to our views.py right here, we actually did a mistake. This is actually going to be a post creation form. So I'll save. And when you go back right here, when I refresh, we're actually going to have our form working perfect. So let's go ahead and use our form to save some posts. So when I come right in here, I'll provide a sample post title, and then I'll go ahead and also provide our content. So I'll provide a sample comment, and once I've done that, then I also say that our author is Sally Jonathan. So I'm not going to choose a picture for now. So I'll go ahead and submit this. And when you submit this, you see that our sample post and our sample content have been created. So this actually has shown us how we can handle our forms. It has actually shown us how we can handle our forms within our class-based views. So let's go ahead and also look at how we can decorate our class-based views. So normally, just like you saw for the previous videos, when we need to log in to access it, an endpoint or a route or a URL on our website, we need a login required decorator on that specific view function. Now in this case, we're going to go ahead and decorate our class that's going to be for that specific request. So I'm simply going to comment this out since we are not using it. And after commenting this out, then we're going to also comment our login required decorator right here. So what you have here is basically how we're going to be able to use the same functionality to decorate our class. So we're first going to look at how we can call our login required decorator for our class-based view in our URLs. So what I have to do is to come to our urls.py right here, and then we're going to go ahead and import our login required decorator. So I'll do that with from Django.contrib. In this case, we're going to access our auth decorators, and then from there we shall have to import our login required. Right after doing that, then what we shall need to do in case we need to protect a route to access it only when we log in is to come, for example, when you come to our create post view, we'll need to decorate the result of our create post view.as view, which is actually going to be the function that's going to take in our request and then return our response. So what we need to do is to actually wrap all this. So it's going to come right in here, and what you shall have to do is to say login required, and then basically paste what we have for our view function right in here. So when you go ahead and save, we don't have any errors right now. So I'm going to basically go back to our Chrome, and what I have to do is to log out. So in this case, when I log out and then try to access that route that creates a post, so I'm going to actually access create a post. Right now we see that we are being prompted to provide our username and password. This is beautiful. So this is one way we can be able to do that. Now in case we want to do it on the class itself, we're going to override a function called the dispatch function on that class, as we're going to see. So I have to undo this. So we have things just like they were. Now we're going to head over to our views right now, and the first thing we're going to do is to import a simple decorator from Django that's going to allow us to decorate our different methods on our views. So I'll come at the top of our code, and then I'll import this from Django.utils.decorators. We are going to import our method decorator class, our method decorator function. And the purpose of this function is to allow us to add decorators on top of each of the methods that we create for, each of the methods that we have for our view functions. Now what we're going to do is to basically override our dispatch method for our create post view. So now if you're wondering, a dispatch method is one that actually does the changing of an HTTP request into a response. Now in case you are wondering how these work, these functions have all these classes, these class-based views have a lot of functions, and the function that actually does the view part is the dispatch function. So let's go ahead and basically override the dispatch function of our create post view. So I'll do that by coming right here, and then I'll say def, and in this case I'll call dispatch, and this is going to take in self as well as our positional arguments and keyword arguments. Now right after doing this, then what we're going to do is to basically return our class. So we're just simply going to override this by coming and then returning super, and then after doing that we shall just come right here and then call our dispatch, and then we shall provide the same positional arguments as well as the same keyword arguments. Now right after doing that, what we have to do is to go ahead and decorate this function that's responsible for receiving requests and then turning them into responses. So I'm simply going to come at the top of this function, and what I have to do is to say at method decorator. So this method decorator function takes in the exact decorator, and it can either take them as an iterable or takes in two things, and that is the decorator as well as the name of the function that you want to actually decorate. So in this case, what we're going to do is to just simply provide our login required function, and by simply doing this, we actually are done with decorating our method as a login required view. So when I go ahead and save, we don't have any errors right now. So when we head over to our Chrome right now, I'm simply going to go ahead and try to access our create post function. So I'll do this again by accessing our localhost 8000 and then /create post. And this is actually going to work the same way. Now to make this easy, all we can do is to actually go ahead and decorate our class. So what we've been doing is to basically override that function that does the actual changing of an HTTP request into a response. So to avoid doing this and to have cleaner code or a cleaner non-confusing syntax, what we can do is to actually come at the top of our class view, and what we can do is to get rid of this, and now we can actually just call the method decorator on our create post view. So I'll simply come right here and then call the method decorator. Now right after doing this, I'll simply come and provide the decorator, which is going to be our login required decorator. And once you have this, then you can also go ahead and name a string that's going to stand for that specific method that you want to decorate. So in this case, it's actually going to be our dispatch method. So when I go ahead and save, when you head over to our Chrome once again, and I try to access our create post function, so when you go back right at our localhost 8000, and then you try to access our create post function, right now we see that the same view is actually being returned with a login screen. So I have to provide our username as well as our password and be able to access that part of our application. In this video, I've been able to give you a simple introduction to class-based views and how we can use them to handle our HTTP requests and HTTP responses. If you've enjoyed this video, all you have to do is to click the like button and leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye.